The solitary guest. The ballroom of the Lakeside Grand Hotel glowed with hundreds of tiny lights that reflected off the polished wooden floors. Olivia Morgan smoothed down the fabric of her rose-colored dress and tried to look like she belonged there. Her college roommate Victoria had invited her to this extravagant wedding 6 months ago, back when Olivia thought she might have a date by now. That had not worked out. Olivia sat at table 12, positioned near the dessert table but far from the dance floor where couples moved together in perfect rhythm. She watched Victoria spin in her husband's arms, the bride's face radiating pure happiness. Olivia felt genuinely thrilled for her friend, but watching all these paired guests made her feel more alone than she had in months. A waiter passed by carrying a tray of sparkling wine. Olivia took a glass and sipped it slowly, letting the bubbles tickle her throat. She pulled out her phone and scrolled through work emails that could easily wait until Monday morning. Anything to avoid making eye contact with the married couples who seemed to be silently wondering why a woman her age showed up without a partner. The chair next to her suddenly scraped across the floor. Olivia looked up to find a man settling into the empty seat without asking permission. He wore a charcoal gray suit that fit him perfectly, and his light brown hair was styled in a way that looked effortless but probably took time. His green eyes held an expression that seemed both confident and slightly desperate. Before Olivia could ask what he was doing, the man leaned closer and spoke in a hushed voice that somehow cut through all the music and laughter around them. He explained that his aunt had been following him around the entire evening, introducing him to every single woman under 40. He desperately needed a break, and her empty table looked like the perfect hiding spot. Olivia blinked in surprise, caught between finding this amusing and being annoyed. This complete stranger expected her to help him avoid his own family members. The boldness of it would have irritated her if not for the genuine worry she saw flash across his handsome face. He extended his hand with a slight smile. Julian Foster, he introduced himself. Architect, reluctant nephew, and currently in serious need of help from a sympathetic stranger. Despite every logical thought telling her this was strange, Olivia shook his hand. The warmth of his grip sent an unexpected tingle through her fingers. She gave her name in return and watched relief wash over his features. Julian poured wine into her empty glass with the ease of someone comfortable at formal events. He suggested they appear deep in conversation to discourage his aunt's matchmaking efforts. The request was ridiculous, yet something about the combination of his charm and obvious discomfort made Olivia willing to go along with it. She asked what he did when not hiding from family interference. Julian explained that he designed sustainable commercial buildings, traveling frequently between construction sites and client meetings. The demanding schedule left almost no time for serious relationships, which only made his aunt more determined to find him a wife. Olivia shared her own situation. As a marketing director for a growing tech company, she spent long hours developing campaigns and managing teams. Romance had taken a back seat to career growth, and her last relationship had ended 18 months earlier when her boyfriend complained that work always came first. Their conversation flowed more easily than Olivia expected. Julian had quick wit and seemed genuinely interested in what she said, asking thoughtful questions about her projects and opinions. When he laughed at her story about a presentation that went completely wrong, the sound felt real rather than polite. Across the ballroom, an older woman in an elegant lavender dress watched their table with obvious curiosity. Julian noticed his aunt's attention and casually moved his chair slightly closer to Olivia. The gesture looked natural to anyone watching, but Olivia felt her heartbeat quicken at the sudden nearness. They needed a believable backstory if his aunt came over to talk. Working together quickly, they invented a fictional relationship that had lasted 5 months. They met at a professional networking mixer where Olivia's company needed architectural consulting. Coffee meetings turned into dinner dates, and professional respect grew into something more personal. The story came together smoothly, each of them adding details that made it sound convincing. By the time they finished, Olivia almost believed it herself. Julian's aunt approached their table with the determined walk of someone on a mission. Helen Foster wore her status comfortably, her sharp eyes taking in every detail about Olivia from head to toe. Julian stood smoothly, introducing Olivia as his girlfriend. The word hung in the air between them, both a lie and somehow thrilling. Olivia rose and shook Helen's hand, launching into their rehearsed story with confidence that surprised her. Helen's questions came quickly. How exactly did they meet? What did Olivia do professionally? Were things getting serious between them? Each question tested their made-up story, but Olivia and Julian answered with smooth precision, sometimes finishing each other's sentences and adding small believable details. When Helen finally excused herself, looking satisfied despite clear curiosity, Olivia released a breath she had not realized she was holding. Julian's eyes met hers, and they shared a moment of quiet amusement at successfully fooling his aunt. Something passed between them in that look, something that felt more real than their invented relationship. As the reception began winding down and guests started leaving, Julian walked Olivia toward the exit. The night air carried the fresh scent of the nearby lake, and stars scattered across the dark sky above them. He thanked her for the help, admitting the evening would have been unbearable without her intervention. Olivia brushed off the gratitude, suggesting they were even since his company made the wedding far less lonely than she had anticipated. Julian pulled a business card from his jacket and handed it to her with an expression that seemed both hopeful and uncertain. He suggested they exchange contact information, mentioning that similar situations might come up in the future. Perhaps they could help each other again. Olivia accepted the card, her fingers brushing against his. She added her number to his phone, telling herself this was simply networking. Yet as she watched him walk away toward the parking area, she could not shake the feeling that something significant had just started. The card felt warm in her palm as she waited for her car. Julian Foster, architect, it read, followed by his firm name and contact details. At the bottom, in clean script, were the words printed by the company. But as Olivia slipped the card into her purse, she wondered if she would actually use it. For days later, that question would be answered in a way she never imagined. The arrangement begins. Olivia had convinced herself that the wedding encounter with Julian was a pleasant but isolated event. Something to remember fondly but not repeat. So when her phone buzzed with his name 4 days later, genuine surprise flickered through her. His message was straightforward but friendly, asking if she had time for coffee that afternoon. He mentioned wanting to discuss something that might interest her professionally. The phrasing intrigued Olivia enough to agree, though she told herself curiosity rather than attraction motivated her acceptance. They met at a small coffee shop in the downtown area, tucked between modern office buildings. Julian arrived exactly on time, carrying the same quiet confidence she remembered from the wedding. He ordered them both specialty cappuccinos, somehow selecting exactly what she would have chosen. After brief small talk about work and the weather, Julian outlined his situation with surprising honesty. His business partners and important clients came from traditional backgrounds where being married influenced trust and credibility. Being single in his 30s created subtle but real disadvantages in negotiations and building professional relationships. He had considered various solutions but kept returning to one idea. What if he had a girlfriend who understood the arrangement was purely professional? Someone intelligent and capable who could handle business dinners and social functions without developing unrealistic expectations about their relationship becoming genuine. Olivia listened with growing understanding about where this conversation was headed. Julian was proposing they continue their wedding act, transforming it into an ongoing arrangement. The concept struck her as both absurd and strangely appealing. Julian laid out his proposal with the precision of a business contract. He needed someone to accompany him to events approximately twice each month. Charity galas, client dinners, industry conferences, occasional family gatherings. In exchange, he offered financial compensation that made Olivia's eyes widen. The amount exceeded half her monthly salary, paid simply for showing up and playing the role of devoted girlfriend. The money alone deserved consideration, but Julian offered something potentially more valuable. Access to circles that could advance her marketing career significantly. Olivia had been trying for months to secure contracts with major architectural firms and construction companies. Being seen as Julian Foster's girlfriend would open doors that typically remained locked to marketing directors from smaller tech companies. She asked about logistics and boundaries. Julian had clearly thought through the details. They would maintain completely separate lives outside public appearances. No romantic expectations existed between them. The arrangement would last 6 months initially, after which they could reassess or stage an amicable breakup. Olivia studied his face, searching for hidden motives or warning signs. Julian met her gaze steadily, his expression open and honest. This was a business transaction to him, nothing more complicated. After several minutes of careful consideration, Olivia extended her hand across the table. They had an agreement. Julian shook firmly, his smile revealing genuine relief that she had accepted. 2 evenings later, a car service arrived at Olivia's apartment building. Julian had sent a personal shopper earlier that day with 3 designer gowns to choose from, insisting she needed appropriate attire for the charity gala they would attend. Olivia selected a deep sapphire dress that fit her perfectly. When Julian saw her, something flickered in his eyes before he quickly returned his expression to neutral. He complimented her appearance with professional courtesy rather than personal interest. The gala took place at a modern art museum with sculptures and installations providing a sophisticated backdrop. As they entered together, Olivia noticed how heads turned. Julian clearly held respect in these circles, and her presence generated immediate curiosity. He introduced her to colleagues, investors, and business partners throughout the evening. Olivia used her professional skills effectively, asking intelligent questions and making connections between different conversations. She noticed how Julian's associates relaxed around him when they saw her, as if her presence validated something they had questioned about him previously. During dinner, seated with a prominent developer and his wife, Julian's hand covered hers on the table. The gesture appeared affectionate and natural, but Olivia felt electricity shoot through her at the contact. His thumb brushed across her knuckles absently, and she wondered if he noticed the effect his touch created. The following weekend brought the challenge Olivia had been quietly dreading. Helen Foster hosted a family dinner at her home, specifically requesting that Julian bring his new girlfriend. Julian picked up Olivia early, allowing time to review their backstory and prepare for inevitable scrutiny. He seemed more nervous than usual, admitting that family gatherings always stressed him more than business functions. The Foster home was elegant and welcoming, all tasteful decoration and comfortable furniture that spoke of old money spent wisely. Helen greeted them at the door, her sharp eyes immediately assessing how Olivia fit with her nephew. Besides Helen, the dinner included Julian's younger brother Thomas, an environmental lawyer with an easy smile and gentle manner, and his father Richard, a retired civil engineer who studied Olivia with frank curiosity. Throughout the meal, Olivia answered questions about her background, education, and career with honest details woven into their fictional relationship timeline. She shared stories about her childhood in a working-class neighborhood, her scholarship to State University, her decision to take risks in her career rather than play it safe. Richard seemed impressed by her drive and intelligence. He mentioned that his late wife would have appreciated meeting someone with substance rather than just social connections. The compliment touched Olivia more deeply than expected. After dinner, while Julian helped his father with something in the garage, Thomas cornered Olivia in the living room. The younger brother poured 2 glasses of wine and settled into a chair with a knowing expression. Thomas observed that Olivia seemed different from Julian's usual type. Most women his brother dated treated relationships like business deals, all surface charm without genuine connection. But Thomas noticed how Olivia actually listened when Julian spoke, how her eyes followed him across the room when she thought no one was watching. Olivia's heart raced at the observation. She deflected carefully, suggesting that perhaps she and Julian simply understood each other well. Thomas smiled gently, mentioning that his brother built walls around himself. His work consumed him, and he had never successfully maintained a relationship longer than a few months. If Olivia was developing real feelings, she needed to protect herself from inevitable heartbreak. The warning echoed in Olivia's mind throughout the following weeks. She found herself analyzing every interaction with Julian, searching for signs that their arrangement affected him the way it was affecting her. But Julian remained consistently professional. Kind but distant, affectionate in public but carefully neutral in private. He texted her about upcoming events, confirmed logistics, ensured she had appropriate clothing and accessories. Every interaction reinforced that this was business for him. Their next public appearance was a gallery opening featuring contemporary installations. Olivia wore a black dress with an elegant neckline that made Julian's eyes widen briefly before he recovered his composure. The gallery buzzed with art collectors and cultural enthusiasts. Julian stayed close throughout the evening, his hand resting on her lower back as they moved between exhibits. The touch burned through the fabric of her dress, making concentration difficult. They stopped before a large canvas dominated by swirling grays and silvers. The title card read, "Illusions of Connection." The artist explored how people present false versions of themselves while desperately seeking authentic relationships. Olivia stared at the painting, feeling the irony pierce through her. She and Julian were living that exact contradiction, pretending intimacy while maintaining careful emotional distance. Julian's breath warmed her ear as he leaned close to comment on the artwork. For a moment, standing there in the dimly lit gallery with his closeness overwhelming her senses, the line between performance and reality blurred completely. A business associate approached them, breaking the moment. Olivia slipped back into her role, charming and engaging. But as the evening continued, she realized with growing clarity that her feelings had evolved far beyond the professional arrangement they had agreed upon. 3 months into their arrangement, Olivia's life had transformed completely. Her closet held designer clothes she would never have afforded otherwise. Her calendar filled with events that exposed her to influential people across multiple industries. And her heart carried feelings she had never intended to develop. The financial benefits had been substantial. She paid off credit card debt and built savings that provided genuine security. The professional advantages proved even more valuable. 2 major clients signed contracts after meeting her at events with Julian, impressed by her insights and connections. But success felt hollow when measured against the emotional complexity consuming her thoughts. Every public touch from Julian sent electricity through her body. Every private conversation revealed layers of his personality that made her care more deeply. Every carefully maintained boundary reminded her that none of it was real for him. When Julian drove her home after the gallery opening, silence filled the car with unspoken thoughts. Olivia wanted to say something, to acknowledge the shift happening inside her. But fear held her tongue. If she admitted her feelings and he did not feel the same way, their entire arrangement would collapse. Better to stay silent and preserve what they had than risk losing him completely. At least that was what she told herself as she watched him drive away, her heart aching with words she could not speak. Truth and new beginnings. The breaking point arrived during the annual technology and innovation charity auction that Julian's firm sponsored. The evening would draw influential figures from across multiple industries, testing their performance skills more than any previous appearance. Julian picked up Olivia early for hair and makeup appointments he had scheduled. She protested the excessive preparation, but he insisted this event mattered more than usual. His firm was announcing a major partnership, and executives from the partnering company would be evaluating everything about him, including his personal life and relationship stability. The stylist transformed Olivia into someone she barely recognized. Her hair fell in elegant waves, her makeup enhanced her features dramatically, and the midnight blue gown Julian selected fit her perfectly. When she emerged from the dressing room, Julian stood frozen, staring at her with an expression that seemed far more personal than professional. He caught himself quickly, complimenting her appearance with the same courteous tone he always used. But something in his eyes lingered, making Olivia's heart race with dangerous hope. The auction took place in a historic ballroom with soaring ceilings and ornate details. Hundreds of guests mingled beneath crystal chandeliers while servers circulated with champagne and appetizers. Julian introduced Olivia to dozens of people, his hand never leaving the small of her back. During the live auction portion, Julian bid aggressively on a weekend package to a luxury mountain resort. When he won with a final bid that far exceeded the package value, people around them applauded. Someone nearby commented that he must be planning a romantic escape with his beautiful girlfriend. Julian smiled and pulled Olivia closer, suggesting they would indeed enjoy the trip together. The casual lie should not have affected her, but Olivia felt tears prick her eyes. Everything between them was performance and pretense, carefully constructed illusion without substance. After the auction concluded, Julian suggested they step onto the terrace for fresh air. The night was clear and cool, stars visible despite the city lights. They stood at the railing, looking out over the illuminated skyline while music drifted from inside. Olivia's emotions had reached a breaking point. 3 months of pretending while her feelings grew more intense had become unbearable. She could not continue the act knowing it meant nothing to Julian beyond business convenience. She told him they needed to talk about their arrangement. Julian tensed immediately, asking if something was wrong or if she wanted different terms. The question hurt because it confirmed his perspective. This was a contract to him, something to be negotiated and adjusted. Olivia turned to face him directly. She explained that the arrangement was no longer working for her. Not because of logistics or compensation, but because her feelings had evolved beyond what she had agreed to. She cared about him in ways that made pretending painful rather than simple. Julian's expression shifted through several emotions. Surprise, confusion, and something that might have been hope before he carefully controlled his features. He asked what she was saying exactly. Olivia laid it out clearly. She had developed genuine feelings for him. Real affection and attraction that went far beyond their professional agreement. Continuing to pretend intimacy while maintaining emotional distance was hurting her more with each passing week. She could not do it anymore. The silence stretched between them, heavy with implications. Julian stared at her as if seeing something unexpected. When he finally spoke, his voice was rough with emotion he was failing to hide. He admitted he thought she understood this was purely business for both of them. That assumption had allowed him to maintain his own careful control. Because if he acknowledged his true feelings, everything would become impossibly complicated. Olivia's breath caught at the implication in his words. Julian continued speaking, the careful composure he always maintained cracking to reveal vulnerability beneath. He confessed that their arrangement had stopped being simple for him weeks earlier. Every event they attended together felt less like performance and more like genuine dating. Every conversation revealed more about her that fascinated him. Every moment of physical contact made him want to drop the pretense and pursue something real. But he had convinced himself she viewed this as purely professional. That believing otherwise was wishful thinking from a man who had never successfully maintained a real relationship. His work consumed his time and energy. His previous romantic attempts had all failed because he could not balance career demands with emotional intimacy. Julian admitted he was terrified of transforming their working arrangement into something authentic. If a real relationship failed, he would lose not just a romantic partner, but someone who had become genuinely important to him. The risk seemed too great. Olivia listened with tears streaming down her face. She had spent months believing her feelings were one-sided, carefully hiding her heart to protect their professional agreement. Learning that Julian had been doing the same thing created both relief and frustration. She asked why he never said anything, why he maintained such careful distance when he felt something deeper. Julian's answer was brutally honest. Fear. Fear of vulnerability, fear of failure, fear of losing someone important by wanting too much. They stood on the terrace as the party continued inside. Two people finally being honest about feelings they had hidden from each other and themselves. The city lights sparkled below them and music floated on the night air, but their entire world had condensed to this single moment of truth. Olivia asked what happened now. They could not go back to pretending after this conversation. Julian agreed, suggesting they had two choices. They could end their arrangement completely and go their separate ways, or they could try building something genuine together, accepting all the risks that entailed. The first option would be safer, protecting them both from potential heartbreak. But Olivia had already been hurt by pretending her feelings did not exist. Walking away now would mean losing someone extraordinary because of fear. She told Julian she wanted to try the real thing. Not a business arrangement with clear boundaries and defined end points. An actual relationship where they allowed themselves to be vulnerable and authentic with each other. Julian pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly as if she might disappear. He apologized for wasting 3 months on pretense when they could have been building something genuine. Olivia forgave him immediately, understanding they had both been protecting themselves in the only way they knew. When Julian kissed her, it was completely different from their careful public kisses. This kiss was desperate and honest, months of suppressed emotion finally breaking free. Olivia kissed him back with equal intensity, pouring all her confused feelings into the connection between them. They eventually pulled apart, both breathless and slightly dizzy from the emotional intensity. Julian suggested they start over properly. No contract, no compensation, no predetermined timeline. Just two people exploring whether their feelings could survive outside the artificial framework that had brought them together. The following evening, Julian picked up Olivia for their first official date. Not a charity event or business function, but dinner at a small restaurant where nobody would recognize them or care about their relationship status. They talked for hours, sharing stories and perspectives they had never explored during their arrangement. Julian described his childhood as the son of demanding parents who measured success solely through professional achievement. Emotional expression was discouraged as weakness, creating patterns he still struggled to break. Olivia shared her own background. Growing up with limited resources but abundant love, watching her parents work multiple jobs to provide opportunities. Their sacrifice motivated her professional drive but also created guilt about prioritizing career over personal relationships. As they talked, Olivia realized how much they had in common despite surface differences. Both driven by ambition, both guarded with emotions, both convinced that vulnerability equaled weakness. Their arrangement had allowed them to connect while maintaining protective walls. Now they needed to learn intimacy without those barriers. Over the following months, their relationship evolved naturally. They continued attending some events together, but now as an actual couple rather than business partners. The difference was subtle to outsiders but profound for them. Olivia discovered Julian's passion for sustainable architecture and his love of early morning runs. Julian learned about her talent for strategy and tendency to work through problems by baking elaborate desserts. They shared weekends exploring the city together, building memories that belonged only to them.